Hope you are enjoying the sessions that we've had today on our final day at Healthspan. We're going to get started with our next panel, where we will be discussing bringing together startup CEOs, overcoming the roadblocks to success. So as you've probably heard me say over the week, or anyone that's joining us for the first time, we encourage as many questions as comments for our great panelists we have with us here today. So feel free to pop any questions or comments you have in the live discussion box that you can find at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our moderator for this session. Our moderator is Sharon Chang. Sharon is the head of JLABS at Shanghai from Johnson & Johnson. Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining. I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel discussion today, bringing together 4 CEOs from our Johnson & Johnson Innovation JLABS resident company portfolio to reflect on their journeys and the role of collaboration in overcoming the roadblocks to success. So as head of JLABS at Shanghai, the first incubator in Asia Pacific and the largest in our global network of 13 incubators, our mission is to provide innovators with some of the essential resources, connections, and know-how they need to overcome any hurdles that come their way. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today to hear exactly what our innovators are working on, what they're working on the ground, and what they need. So to kick things off, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome our panelists today and provide them 30 seconds to provide a quick introduction to the audience here with us. So let's start with you, Bechara.
Hi, thanks, Sharon. My name is Bechara Saab. I'm the CEO and the chief scientist at Mobio Interactive. And before focusing full-time on the company, I was a principal investigator at the psychiatry hospital in Zurich. So I'm classically trained as a neuroscientist. And at Mobio Interactive, we build digital therapeutics to measure, to prevent, and to treat mental illness. And we really like to blur the line between performance enhancement and psychotherapy. So really there's an opportunity for everybody to get better and healthier in their brains. And we make use of that inside of our product DTX.
Thanks. And over to you, Mairin.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. So Mairin Reid, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cogniant. Prior to joining Cogniant full-time, I am a digital health leader. So I led digital healthcare teams in Accenture and then Deloitte in Southeast Asia. So I'm based in Singapore at the moment, and always focused on digital transformation and how digital health can actually really drive impact with to support better patient outcomes. And at Cogniant, we're really focused on using digital biomarkers to really enhance both patient outcomes, but look at accelerating clinical research specifically in neurology. So really excited to be here today.
Thank you. Over to you, Ted.
Hi, my name is Ted Jin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Biosystems. Our company develops consumer products that originate from microbiome research. So as an example, we model how certain bacteria regulate host metabolic activities, and then develop those bacteria into novel probiotics for supplementation and food. I'm an engineer by training, but grew up in the corporate world. I spent the majority of my career at Procter & Gamble, where I had the chance to lead some wonderful brands such as Gillette, Crest, and Oral-B. However, a few years ago, I decided to take the road less traveled and haven't looked back since.
Thanks, Ted. And Veronika. Do we have Veronika? Okay, we will move on a little bit. Well, thank you, panelists, for all being here today. I'm really looking forward to your insights and to find out a little bit more about each of your journeys. So let's begin with some questions. Bechara, I want to start the session by coming to you first, especially as we've been seeing some really great news coverage of your achievements recently. Can you provide some insights into work that Mobio Interactive is doing in the mental health space? Including some background into why you wanted to work within this field and your overall vision for the company. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll start with the vision at the end. The mission for the company is to provide effective and accessible healthcare to all humans. And we think this is only really possible by leveraging the latest in technology. And what we do in essence is we take proven psychotherapy programs or courses that are geared and have been shown to deliver benefit for patients, particularly people who are affected by stress. And stress affects 90% of all diseases, either causes or worsens 90% of diseases. We take these proven programs and then we adapt them for a mobile platform. And we then deliver these. But before we go out and do this and start to make claims, we actually run clinical trials. We ran the first clinical trial that showed a meditation app that can beat placebo, for example. And now we're using more and more types of psychotherapy in order to address traumatic brain injury, pediatric obesity, do a lot of work in psycho-oncology. And so really focusing on helping patients be better. And we have a whole corporate arm as well. But the concept is very clinically validated. We can absolutely trust that we're having an important impact and we have the data to back that up. And simultaneously, we measure objectively in real time. So we allow ourselves to leverage technology through computer vision and AI to get an objective measure for stress, for example, and building up more of that. And one of the ways that we reach people is partnerships with insurance companies. We have a great partnership going on with Green Shield Canada, for example, and they have close to 7 million policyholders who can get access to OMDTX through GSC, and that's a really nice partnership, and it works really well. And the motivation for doing this actually really stemmed from curiosity. I'd spent a little over 15 years in basic research, understanding neural mechanisms that are healthy for the brain, particularly how we can stimulate the circuitry of curiosity and how that's helpful for the brain. And I wanted a way to start translating my research into humans, and that's what led to the establishment of Mobio Interactive and a product like OMDTX.
Thanks, Besh. That's great. Fascinating story. And Maureen, you're also working within the mental health field. So I want to come to you next. As one of our most recent additions to the JLABS at Shanghai portfolio, can you tell us a little bit more about Cogniant's mission and what motivated you to take this on?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question. I think for us, similar to Besh, we are, for Cogniant, our overall mission is to accelerate neurological research by empowering patients. And we focus on having both a novel data collection and novel data sets from this part of the world, so from APAC, and then looking at clinical state prediction and treatment optimization ultimately. And at Cogniant, we are supporting researchers, clinicians, and biopharma companies along the value chain of clinical research and drug discovery for psychiatric disorders, Alzheimer's disease, and multiple sclerosis. And I think for us, really, we're born out of a basis where Niraj, my co-founder, and I, we were both colleagues in a big multinational consulting company. And then he was my client for a while. And then and we were also housemates at a point in time. And I think for us, we really decided that we wanted to focus on a population set and a therapeutic area that was really underserved in APAC. And that led us to really thinking about, mental health. And both of us had been touched by mental health, either through family members that had suffered from depression and anxiety. And I don't think that that's, rare in this day and age. It resonates with each one of us. And unfortunately, in my family, we had a family member commit suicide. And I felt like in terms of Cogniant's mission, we really wanted to be able to use the power of technology to redefine, clinical outcomes for patients. And that led us to, one, starting Cogniant, and then two, to Bish's point around being clinically validated. We have a company philosophy that we want to be clinically validated in order to really drive certain health outcomes. And at the moment, we've got 5 clinical trials happening between Australia and Singapore, where we're trying to not only validate our solution, but redefine our solution to really accelerate that and empower patient outcomes.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks for your authenticity and sharing your passion. It's great to have you join the JLABS at Shanghai family. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing more about the work you do. Let's go back to Veronika. Maybe first a quick introduction, and then maybe, as at S-Biomedic, your mission is to treat and prevent rather than react and control. So after your brief introduction, perhaps you can share with us more about your company, the science behind its skincare products, and what inspired you to take this idea forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon, and hi, everyone. I'm the CEO and co-founder of S-Biomedic, and the story of S-Biomedic actually started in a little bit unusual way. It all started in 2014 at the beach of Barcelona. I have met there my two co-founders who are both synthetic biologists. So they have been doing research now around developing bacteria as living pills and working with the genomic modifications of bacteria and so on. And basically that was in 2014 when there was this huge hype around gut microbiome transplantation. So I don't know if you have heard about the success of transplanting the gut microbiome that basically can relieve for patients who have been for years with gut infections. And so my two scientific co-founders, they thought if that works so well in the gut, and I think the success rates were around 90%, it was really amazing. They basically thought that very, very similar or the same concept should work on the skin, because our skin is populated by millions of bacteria or fungi and viruses. And so we went ahead. We tried to transplant the microbiome actually between ourselves, and it worked. And from there, managed to basically move ahead with the research, joined University Clinic Dermatology department, where we then started to develop much more focusing on Cutibacterium acnes, which is the most dominant species living on our face and actually many other body sites. And through their learning that there is so many different applications where people still do not have satisfactory solutions for skin conditions, starting with acne, but also what you mentioned, prevention of damage of skin cells, which then is ending until the carcinoma of our skin. And that's where we are today the most active. So we are basically looking at the different bacteria, different strains of Cutibacterium acnes, and what is their mode of action, what is the interaction with the host, and how can we select these specific strains, mix them into topical applications, and then indeed a lot about prevention and also care for people.
Thanks, Veronika. And I really like the science-driven approach from beach to biome to beauty. Ted, over to you now. Dose Biosystems also focuses on the human microbiome. So what motivated you to found Dose Biosystems, and how can it play a role in empowering self-care by educating customers and consumers?
Thanks for the question. So just to focus on the last part of your question with the self-care and the education part, but to think about this for a second. So just to kind of build on the last response. So my personal motivation to start Dose Biosystems was wanting to apply certain research that was typically focused more so towards pharma instead to consumer products. And there's a lot of reasons this is unpopular, mostly financial. However, I think it's also because consumers might not want to buy a certain product even if it's a breakthrough. So the enhanced risk of relying on your marketing, your sales fundamentals and your execution, it's a really tough pill to swallow after years of research. However, that's what makes me excited, and that's what makes me motivated, in that it's satisfying not just when our product wins, but because it's built using better technology. And I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by a team that shares those same convictions. So kind of bringing it back to your question, I really do believe that consumer products, being that they're not prescribed like drugs, someone has to choose to use them. And for us, making something better that someone can choose, that's how we empower self-care.
Great answer, Ted, and very insightful. And as I said, it's great to see both you and Veronika working on consumer products that bring science to the forefront. So we've heard a little bit about the work that you're all doing right now and what aspirations got you here. But I do want to take a minute to look ahead. Like, where do you hope your business will be in the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you think you'll get there? So Veronika, I'm going to start with you, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. So basically, we are right now active, as you said, we are focusing on consumers and really being fast to market. So we're actually right now getting ready to launch our first products in the market. The first ones are it's a skincare for acne. So whoever people who are suffering with acne-prone skin, especially then more in an adult skin, that's where we basically starting. We have done in the pipeline, we have another about 6 programs for prevention of skin damage, looking at the sensitive skin, looking at the tone of the skin. So really a broad portfolio that we would like to then launch in the upcoming years. And yeah, I believe the microbiome is such a huge and such a complex ecosystem that offers so many possibilities, that I believe with the learnings we are now making today, but also in the upcoming years, that we can really turn the whole skin microbiome into a new paradigm in dermatology and skincare. I would love to see it as an established and a standard treatment. So going away from antibiotics, antibiotic resistance, a huge problem there. Going away from all the chemical treatments and disinfectants, moving more into this natural way of treating chronic conditions. So that's where I would love to see S-Biomedic in 5 to 10 years, to be kind of on the forefront of that research, but also commercialization, and really enable people to access solutions that are without side effects and that are effective, and that, you know, that they finally have solution for their skin problems.
Thanks. That's again very insightful, and all the best. How about you, Besh? Where do you hope your business will be in the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you think you'll get there?
Well, the company, you know, I said the mission at the beginning, effective and accessible healthcare for every human. We have to sort of break that down. Well, how far away is that in the future? Already at 5 years, we want to have reached 100 million people. And that's not just have reached or touched them, but also be able to demonstrate benefit. So using our objective tools to measure that benefit for 100 million people in 5 years. That's our goal. So I don't know if that sounds inspiring or interesting or not. Maybe a more philosophical way of putting it is that we want to really empower people. We want to shift. Okay, I think the most exciting thing that's going to happen in healthcare, period, over the next 5, 10, 20 to 50 years is really the understanding that the things that we experience and the things that we think and the things that we do have a physical correlate in our bodies. And you know, everybody sort of intuitively knows that these days. Most people do anyway. But the reality is we have very poor understanding at present for how different types of thought patterns or practices or experiences actually correlate to very specific things within our brains and our bodies. That knowledge is increasing all the time. And as we're able to map these correlations, we will have a profound ability to really control our health on the preventative side, but as well on the treatment side, even for things like neurodegenerative disorders. And this is going to be extremely, extremely transformative, I think, in medicine. And we want to be a driving factor for that. So we already have people, and all they do at the company is correlate certain types of behaviors to the strengthening of particular neural circuits. And then how do we apply that in different contexts? For example, somebody with depression or somebody with a brain injury. And I think this is really only the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
Absolutely, and transformational, and 100 million, not just accessible, but impactful. Thanks for sharing. Over to you, Maureen. How about you? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, similar sentiments, right? I think that at Cogniant, we believe your behaviors, you know, within your mobile phone and your digital biomarkers create a digital phenotype that is you know, 100% indicative of who you are as an individual and your health status. And I think for us, we're going from, you know, augmenting that into actually provisioning healthcare. And I think in the next 5 years, we've spent the last couple of years becoming clinically validated. And what that will allow us to do is to actually, you know, use our science and the algorithms that sit behind our solution to actually then be put into, clinical research and drug discovery to hopefully bring drugs to market faster. And when I'm talking about a specific therapeutic area, we're talking about the likes of depression and anxiety and Alzheimer's now that are, impacting more than half of our population. And so for Cogniant, we believe now that not only will we hopefully, fast track, as we've seen during COVID, but be able to fast track not only a COVID vaccine, but some new drugs to market when it comes to neurology. And I think, to your point, Besh, like when we think about an individual, I think that there's so much that's unknown. And for us at Cogniant, like our mission really is to understand the human being and the human being in all aspects. So not only their health status, but their socioeconomic status and their behaviors and how that impacts into their overall health status. And I think that that's where we're driving to, and hopefully it's before 5 years. So, with the increase of our population data sets and data sets that we're working with in this part of the world, we're hoping to fast track that in the next, couple of years rather than 5 to 10 years.
Wonderful. And again, speed and time is essential here. So over to you, Ted. Where do you hope your business will be in the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you think you'll get there? Thanks.
So I think for me, being around in the next 5 or 10 years means that we're doing something right. And for me, that means that we've built a company that can sustain because we've stayed intellectually curious, we've taken risks, we've become financially independent, and we've kept our continuity and culture. And as a microbiome company, I'd say that where we kind of see the critical points is that, how does our translational research and regulatory frameworks evolve and advance to a point that we can tackle, topics such as true personalization in this space. And I'm not talking about the personalization that you see today, where it's like a permutation of probiotics that you take based on some at-home test, but rather trying to crack some of those elements of the black box. I think linked to what some of these these panelists have talked about is that deeper linkages, maybe those related such to the brain-gut axis, even getting to certain solutions like genetically engineered consortia that are developed specifically for you. So that's what I'm excited about, and some of the things that we're working on for the future.
Thanks. And this is always my favorite part of a panel discussion, because, you kind of tell us your story, what motivated you, and, your aspirations and what you're going to be doing. So dream big. And I really hope, JLABS continues to play that big part in supporting you on this path. I am seeing questions coming in through the chat box, so please keep them coming in. And I'm gonna, approach the questions as well and incorporate them, I think, into my next question. But again, just a big call out to the audience. Please feel free to keep submitting them. I can see them coming in, and we'll get through them one by one. So starting off with Veronika, and you founded S-Biomedic in 2014. And I'm looking in the chat box as well, secrets to success, advice on entrepreneurs working in similar fields. What have you learned so far from your journey as a co-founder and CEO, and what are your takeaways?
Thank you. Very hard question, because there's so many learnings, and I feel like still keep learning every day. But I think for me, the two biggest ones were first one, that it's harder than it seems. And there actually, I have a quote that I really like, and I hope I get it right now. Imagine a person riding a lion. The other people think, wow, this person is brave. And the person on the lion is thinking, how the hell did I get on a lion? And how do I keep from getting eaten? And I think I really love this quote, and I think it describes so well how you feel as an entrepreneur. And I think it's a big learning that I think quite often people see the beautiful PR and news and success and that whatever is public, but in the back it's quite hard. But I think the hard part is just part of it, like going through the different failures. At the beginning, I mean, it feels like failure a few times a day, when you find out that your research report on your IP is not ideal, and then in next few days it's fine again because you got your first, news published or anything else. So I think there, the failures that we experience, I think it's one of a very important learnings, and it's not always bad. we had at the beginning we had many small ones, but we also had quite on the way on the journey we had a quite big failure where we one of our important experiments basically failed. We didn't get any reasonable data out of it, and that basically cost us really 1 year of research. We were almost running out of money. We were in a really difficult position, and that's one of the learnings that I then made is at that point, we were already part of JLABS, actually. We were already part of the accelerator, and we could really lean there on the help from the team, on the knowledge from the Janssen group, and they helped us with the root cause analysis, they helped us with risk mitigation, they helped us with how to navigate forward. And from there, basically really having people who you can lean on, having a network, having peers, having mentors, having coaches, that is today also very important for me. So yeah.
Thanks, Veronika, and I'm so glad we were able to help. And I really also like your quote about the lion. You know, it feels like that even working at JLABS. So I'm going to move over now to Besh, right? And you know, we know that a number of obstacles, right? Entrepreneurs face obstacles all the time when it comes to bringing companies to life. And again, that's why, you know, one of the reasons why Johnson & Johnson Innovation was founded, to help, you know, provide a solution to these difficulties and challenges. So Besh, yeah, coming to you for your insights. When you reflect on your experiences today, what have been some of the key challenges in co-founding Mobio Interactive?
Well, I hate to fill out forms, so paperwork is always challenging, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. But more practically, I think one of the greatest challenges that certainly I personally have come across is knowing when to grab that shiny object and when to let it float past you on the river. There are so many opportunities. And my PhD mentor, John Roeder, he did an excellent job of saying no to people. And it's commonly said in science, particularly when you do a PhD, that the people who really succeed are the ones who are able to turn down, projects, because there's so many questions out there when you're doing research. I mean, there's so many things you could do, so many potential avenues to make wild discoveries. But the fact of the matter is, there's only a certain amount of bandwidth. And that's true as much of an individual as it is of a company. So one of the biggest challenges is knowing what to shut down and what to go for. And I still continue and always will struggle with that and deliberate at length. And sometimes you shut something down and you revive it again, a couple of years later. But that has always been, I think, one of the hardest, most challenging things for me is, as a general class, is when to pick up that shiny object and when to just let it float down the river.
Yeah, very honest. And I mean, it's all part of making that go, no go decision early on, right? And being capital efficient as an entrepreneur and choosing your priorities. Mm-hmm. Another one of the big challenges we see, and we're in 2020, 2021 is, COVID-19. So Mairin, I just want to pivot over to COVID-19, and I just love to get your thoughts on this. Has the pandemic impacted your business at all? And if so, how?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think maybe I'll start with, just from a practical standpoint, what it did to Cogniant. So I think that, we've got a number of clinical trials happening in the market, and they were actually halted during COVID, and for a right reason, right? The world's going through a pandemic, certain healthcare systems, they were mostly with public healthcare systems, and they wanted to focus on the pandemic at hand. So, they were halted. And then in the process of them, us being back, onboarded into those trials, actually within our trial, clinical trial design, we didn't have clinical protocol that included online onboarding. So we had to go through a whole process with, our we've got my co-founder Niraj Kathari, who is the principal investigator from our side, but we've also got principal investigators when it comes from academia and from, you know, the hospital sides, who we need to go through a whole set of, you know, discussions and redesign in terms of that onboarding of individuals into our trials. And then, you know, when it came to the data sets that we were actually collecting, you know, they were focused on a set of pre-COVID parameters, right? So that meant that the focus changed from, you know, looking at behaviors that were kind of pre-COVID to actually focusing on behaviors of the new norm and COVID and the COVID lockdown world. And I think so from a practical standpoint, we really needed to be, and it was actually, now reflecting back at that point in time, and we're still in COVID. I mean, Singapore has just gone back into a lockdown as of today. So we're feeling that much more again now, but I think we're much more prepared as a company. And I think it allowed us to be really focused on what we wanted to drive in terms of those clinical endpoints within those trials. I think from a positive standpoint, it allowed us to, you know, showcase and draw our attention onto digital health, and especially into mental health. And you know, for those of you that have either been in Asia or lived in Asia or have Asian colleagues, I think, you know, particularly around this part of the world, there's a lot of stigma attached to mental health, and it really broke down those barriers. And that was a really great time for us to not only showcase Cogniant, but actually to have some really valuable conversations. And aligned to that, there was an increase in digital adoption, and, you know, and then that led to an increase in, you know, investor interest, and, you know, our fundraise, like it's had kind of a flow-on effect throughout. So I think, you know, from hardship and kind of the initial almost a panic from those changes with COVID, it allowed us to really not only refocus, but then, I mean, it's been really fruitful for us in many ways. And I think for Niraj and I as co-founders, it allowed us to actually have some time to really be hyper-focused on where we wanted to go to next.
Thanks, Maureen. And that super focused message is, you know, coming through, and, you know, also just resilience and also agility. I'm going to now switch over to Ted and coming to you for your industry insights. You know, and Ted, I view you as a serial entrepreneur. So, you know, what would you say are the biggest challenges working as an innovator within the field of consumer health? And I also want to tie that into the question that I see in the chat box, which, what support do you think is essential in startups on their journey to success?
So in a few words, it's snake oil. That's one of the biggest challenges that's out there. And there's a lot of it out there. And I think some days I suffer from imposter syndrome, and I feel like I'm part of that problem too. But the snake oil exists because there's money in it. And if you're an innovator in consumer health, your success is based on your market traction. So your sales, your user growth, your retention, then that's fine if you're working in digital health, but not when you're making, you know, innovative physical products. And we all know that science takes time. But if you don't have the runway to do it, you're probably going to roll with something that's subpar. That's a patchwork of you know, clinical substantiations. And so, you know, for companies like us, some days it does feel like a binary choice on whether you know, stay in consumer and just focus on building a brand, or whether or not you just transition to pharma and really focus on, you know, your target product profile. And I think that, you know, thankfully, there's a few people out there, a few groups out there, notably from an investor side in the deep tech world, a lot of the different food ecosystems, that they understand this dilemma, and they have the patience to really embrace this gray space. I think that you had a second part to that of like, what's vital for some of these startups on their journey to success. And I'd say that it's early partnerships, academic affiliations. I think that unless you're a superstar with a solid track record and a massive network, you're going to be relatively unknown. And I think that your early relationships, they help your street cred and ultimately help de-risk your company and yourself from failure. And but I think the only warning for that is just, you know, make sure those are functional relationships that actually work, because your customers and your investors can kind of see through the fakes.
Fascinating and interesting. And I mean, you kind of, you know, you're helping us to paint a picture of what it's really like working in this space and what it really takes to find and found and lead the company from the very beginning. So you've mentioned it in yourself, which is, we've had the challenges and we're moving towards the successes and overcoming those roadblocks along the way. Besh, looking at you now, what support have you had to get you to where you are today to overcome those roadblocks?
We've had a lot of support. That's for sure. Even since I was a young adult, around 10 or 11 years old, my father mentioned to me that I will never find a true hero. He said, you will identify individuals in your life that have characteristics to which you aspire, but you'll never find somebody who's really the model for you. And that kind of triggered something in me, and it made me realize that there's all these people who've lived before, who can share their experiences, and just as I learned that lesson from him. And so I've always, since then, literally been on the lookout for people that can share their knowledge with me and help me achieve my ambitions. And so there are innumerable people around the world that have given me personal mentorship as well as for the business. But then, of course, there's also the grants. I mean, we've completed fully completed 3 clinical trials now, have 4 ongoing, have another 6 starting this year. And the majority of all this funding has come from governments, right? Millions of dollars that have gone. They don't take any equity in our company for this, right? They're really just helping us do something which is good for humanity, increasing accessibility to healthcare and putting some clinical validation into mobile health apps that has never really existed before. So it's amazing how much is out there. I mean, kudos to the Canadian government, to the Ontario government, also to the Singaporean government more recently, even the Chinese government. So we'll take it from anybody if the help is authentic and it's aimed at the right place. But I think the people that give the most help, and maybe this is somewhat reflexive, is the team. I mean, the people I work with. I mean, they have bought into the vision that Mark Thilburn, my co-founder, and I came up with originally many years ago. And they're the people that do the work. They're the people that, I work too, but I'm only one person. And so that's really where the help comes from. It seems weird to say that, but it's the fact that there is a pool of people out there in this universe from which you can draw talent to build a team to then target a single initiative is really the main thing. And it's an honor to work with everybody at Mobio Interactive.
Thanks, Besh. And I couldn't agree with you more on how important it is to have a rock star, awesome team. And it's also really good to know that you've got a great support network behind you. I see a question actually from Omar Ahmed. And I think it might be probably more directed towards Maureen and Besh yourself. Omar is a founder in the neuroscience tech. How are you overcoming traditional attitudes of GP doctors in discounting digital tools? Would either one of you like to answer this, Maureen or Besh?
I'm happy to. Maureen, you want to go first though?
Sure. Put me on the spot. No, so I'm happy to answer this question. I think with us, we've never, I think that how we've chosen to go to market is really much in a co-development and co-design with a lot of our GPs and doctors. And especially in Singapore, we've been really lucky to work with 2 of the biggest mental health institutes within Singapore to not only design our tech, but also develop our go-to-market. And I think that was key in order to change some traditional attitudes, to his point, right? And I think people don't know what they don't know. And that includes, doctors, it includes governments, it includes investors, the whole gamut of the spectrum of the ecosystem that is healthcare. And so for Cogniant, I think a key principle in our company, and we couldn't have actually done it, is, choosing, either institutes that were willing to work with us. So from a research perspective, and leveraging their networks. So some of them had, friendly doctors that we could either get, the voice of the doctor or the voice of the customer through. And then when we actually partnered in our clinical trials, we always share the principal investigator role. So we have a role that is co-developed from Cogniant and a role that is co-resourced from our institutes and teaching hospitals that we work with. And that works really well because there's co-ownership. And when there's co-ownership, nobody wants to fail. So you automatically change the behaviors. I think that, what does that mean for us as we continue to scale and expand? I think that, like to your point earlier, Sharon, about COVID, I think that it has fundamentally changed, doctors' perceptions around how they can deliver healthcare and the accessibility and affordability of healthcare. And so to leverage that, but they won't, I think fundamentally you need to prove that you are a proven solution. And we've been able to do that in tandem with them. And they're very much integral to going forward with Cogniant. So we don't do anything alone. I mean, we're a partnership model when it comes to, working with the likes of JLABS, but working with the likes of institutes. And I think that has been key to our success.
Thanks. And Besh, do you want to give some inputs to this question as well?
Everything Mairin mentioned is absolutely true. I think the only thing I would add is that, to really make this scale, because you can't collaborate and do a research project with every physician out there, to really make this scale longer term, there's two main things that we plan on doing. And as one is educating physicians directly with medical sales reps, as well as with medical science liaisons who go out and interact, publish articles in the medical journals, even easy to read ones like review articles and stuff. So really just get the knowledge out there on a broad basis. But ultimately we have to get this stuff included in the medical school curriculum. One of my PhD papers is cited in the medical textbooks in North America and Europe. So, and I didn't finish my PhD that long ago. So I do foresee medical training changing in the years to come and really breaking away from these traditions. That doesn't help the people who've already gone through med school, obviously, but we'll tackle them with our sales reps and other forms of education.
Fantastic. And again, really insightful. Veronika, we've spoken a little bit, or actually you've spoken a little bit about J&J's motivation to help entrepreneurs like yourself through the difficult journey from concept to commercialization. But I'd love to hear your perspectives as an entrepreneur. In an ideal world, how would you see large healthcare companies and other industry players supporting innovators such as yourself?
Thank you. Good question. So I believe, in the first place, or at least what we have seen so far, we have already gone through quite some accelerators and incubators, and it has been always amazing experience. I think what I enjoy most is having access to different resources. So for example, when we need to go to a database, or when we need to access a certain services, having that at a better price, or at a faster delivery, or at a better terms, that's always a great perk. Then in general, access to knowledge, and I think that's actually something that we have leveraged a lot with JLABS in Biersa. So that has been always a great support there, to know that there are experts within the campus on different processes or different technologies that we can turn to. So I think that's very helpful. And also seeing the partners or industrial players as a role model a little bit. That's sometimes interesting to kind of take the learning. Not in all aspects, but there is so many things to learn from collaborations with like J&J and other industrial players. So yeah, many different aspects that I think we managed to leverage so far, and hope to continue.
Fantastic, and thank you. And I think all of you have mentioned the word collaboration. So I'm going to now turn to Ted. How important is collaboration in your success, and what types of collaboration are most critical for you?
So I think for our success, you can't survive without the collaboration. I'll just build on Veronika's answer a little bit. And I swear it's not a shameless promotion for Johnson & Johnson here, but I think that a critical collaboration for us has been with J&J and JLABS, and that's shaped our success. We're based in Toronto, Canada, which is home to a vibrant startup community, but suffers from a void of laboratory space. And our early relationship with JLABS provided us access to facilities like BSL-1, BSL-2 incubator space, equipment access to things like UPCR or HPLC, and that was foundational for us. And that wasn't just a one-time. It helped grow, and that type of collaboration became resources that help provide advice in terms of how we designed our clinical trials, how we would communicate and set up our regulatory strategies. And I think the only thing missing from this story is probably a complete partnership on the back end, which looks at utilizing resources for distribution and sales, but that's more so just wishful thinking at this time. But I think that what I'm trying to say is that collaboration is absolutely critical, but a collaboration and a partnership that helps you not just at one stage of the journey, but can evolve with you as you grow. Those are the ones that are most critical for our success.
Thanks, Ted. I'm going to squeeze this question in also for Besh then. And you mentioned earlier about your partnership with the not-for-profit Green Shield Canada for a meditation program. So in light of your experience, where do you see the future of public-private partnerships and those with the not-for-profits in the mental health space?
So I mean, in healthcare, it's not that uncommon, I think, to you're sort of always doing a public-private partnership. At least, the relationship with the regulators seems like a partnership. I mean, it's a bit like a marriage or something where there's there's a lot of collaboration, but there's a lot of fighting as well. But or competition rather. But the thing is, I guess, with the not-for-profit like Green Shield Canada, I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So in terms of our relationship with them, it hasn't seemed that much different than with our, the way that we negotiate with their competitors who are for profit or with other multinational corporations in healthcare. I'd say that the difference is, between Green Shield Canada and some of their competitors has more to do with just the fact that they're different entities rather than the fact that one happens to be not for profit. So I'm not sure how much insight there, I can really give on that. In terms of public-private partnerships, if your collaboration is with the people that, and I guess we always have those as Mairin does, when you're running your clinical trials, right? You're collaborating with these hospitals, which are generally, or research institutions and universities, which are generally public. It's really nice because they're often one step away from the decision makers when it comes to actually releasing these things to the public. And so you can get the frank feedback and you can kind of have like a proper seat at the table and be heard when you come with these people. So a lot of credibility comes, doors open. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever played the game Settlers of Catan, but it's like this board game and you trade resources. Whoever trades the most resources wins. Because when you are collaborating and you're making deals more than anybody, every time you make a deal and every time you collaborate, you get a little bit of an edge. So it doesn't matter who you're making deals with. If you're making the most, you get the most of the edge. And I think it's very similar in business. Collaboration can, particularly in healthcare, collaboration, if it gives you an edge, do it.
That's great. And I love the analogy. Thank you. And I think at J&J, we often say, look, no one can do this alone. We all need partners. We all need each other. Industry and entrepreneurs need each other. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I do want to close today's session with one final question for all of you. I suggest to keep, your answers brief. As successful entrepreneurs, what words of advice would you give to someone before beginning the journey of entrepreneurship in your field? So Veronika, I'll come to you first.
So I think for me, again, and I think it has been already mentioned almost by everyone here, it's a lot about a team. It's a lot about a network. It doesn't necessarily need to be just experienced people, but just other peers, other startups. So through that, for us, always joining an accelerator, joining an incubator, being exposed there of a bigger network, that was always super important on the journey for me.
Thank you. And Ted?
Just to build on that, I'd say be ready to constantly evolve. You're going to get humbled very early on, and that's a good thing. Embrace the fact that shit don't work. Take feedback from anyone who's willing to give it, and be kind to everyone on your way up, because you might need them to pick you up if you're on your way down.
Thank you. And Besh?
Ted, I love the way you put that. The reality is, and I think most people know this, that the vast majority of startups fail. And so if your goal is to succeed, you really shouldn't do it unless you have no other choice. And I don't mean you have no other options. I mean that you are so compelled to actually take the plunge and to try to start a company and to build something new and to innovate, that if you can say no, you should say no. If you can turn it down, then you should turn it down, because you're not desperate, you're not passionate enough to really have a fighting chance. If your goal is just to have some fun for a while and maybe fail and it doesn't matter, then sure, go ahead, and you will learn a lot. You will get humbled and you will learn some lessons. But if you want to succeed, then say no if you can.
Thank you. And Maureen.
I mean, great answers by all my fellow peers, right? I think that for Cogniant as a philosophy, I think there's three parts to the reason why we all became entrepreneurs. And I think it's, the intersection of passion, the intersection of, I guess, perseverance, and then the intersection of deliberate practice. And we do that in equal measures, right? So we are passionate about changing healthcare. We persevere through the ups and downs, like Ted was saying, in doing that. And then, and then we've got, a lot of hope and good luck mixed into that measure, but it's deliberate practice. So every day we get up and we refocus, and we're hyper focused on our endpoints, and those endpoints evolve during a journey. And I think that's key, right? So passion, perseverance, and deliberate practice is what we practice.
Thank you all. These are wise, great, inspiring words. Thank you so much. So thank you to our panelists for joining us today. It's been great to hear each of your perspectives and to find out a little bit more about you. We do feel extremely lucky to be supporting you via our Johnson & Johnson Innovation JLABS incubators, and we really do look forward to hearing all about your future successes. I really also want to say a big thank you to the audience for your thoughtful questions. And with that, I'm going to hand back over to Healthspan. Thanks for having us. Take care, stay well and healthy.
Great. Thank you, Sharon, for that fantastic moderation. It was a great discussion. So it was a privilege to have all of our panelists here with us today. I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. It was great to see questions during the session. And I thank you all for joining us. So that kind of puts us into a good, swiftly moving into our next session, which is the Ask the Investors session for the European focused. Obviously, we just heard from our great CEOs within the JLABS kind of space and emerging companies. So I think this is a great time to kind of move into that session and ask any burning questions you have with our great investors we have lined up for you, which is starting in just under 10 minutes. So feel free to join that interactive discussion, and we will see you again shortly soon. Thank you. Bye.